Hey there, it's Imran and you're watching Imran Plus. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Marvel Disney Plus shows that were released in 2021, and we're going to be ranking them based on my favorites. So for the most part, every Disney Plus Marvel series was quite entertaining and enjoyable start to finish. These shows were great stories that expanded upon characters within the MCU, pleasing existing fans of said characters while creating new fans along the way. This list is my opinion and thus is subjective. I know that people can get very passionate about their favorites, and that's okay, but I do want to remind everyone that this is subjective. And I did enjoy all of the shows overall, so I would love to hear what you think of my list and what your list looks like and how that differs. Also, this video will have spoilers, so this is a spoiler warning for those of you who haven't seen the show or haven't finished. You might want to pause this video and go ahead and finish those and come back, because I will talk about some details from the show. I do want to establish how I made my list. I based it on how much I enjoyed the show while it aired week to week, how strong the story was and the character development, if there were big moments and how well they landed, and how much I would want to revisit the show. And last thing before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming videos for 2022. We have lots of great stuff to talk about and I wouldn't want you to miss out. All right, let's get started. Number 5 is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This series was Sam's journey to becoming Captain America and also Bucky's journey to coming terms with his past. I believe that this show was the most impacted by COVID in terms of what we got as a final product, because the storyline feels a little bit choppy and abrupt, especially in the final few episodes, and that's because they had to change the plot line. As a result, the end of the show overall, I think, might be the weakest part of the series. I personally am not the biggest fan of the arc that the Flag Smashers take, especially Carly, and I'm not a fan of John Walker being redeemed so quickly and easily. I'm not a fan of that at all, actually. And I didn't really like the Wakandans making Sam's suit, because I feel like it didn't make any sense at all given everything that had happened in the show up to that point, and it didn't make sense with the message of the show. So that didn't work for me at all. Speaking of Sam's suit, it is very comics accurate, and while I like it a lot in posters and still frames, it looks very cool, it doesn't really work as well in motion for some reason. I think the tailoring is a bit off, and it just makes Anthony Mackie feel bulky and inefficient rather than smooth and precise as he is when he was Falcon. And while I did like the plot twist with Sharon Carter, I think it could have been executed better. I just feel like we don't have enough scenes with her to really sell why she becomes a power broker and how that happened and what her motivations are. And I know people don't like that twist at all. I actually think that it's a great new avenue for the character. I just feel like we could have executed it a little bit better. The action in this show is actually very good. Amongst all the shows, I think this show has the best action. So I really like that. What else did I like? Well, I really love the middle of the show, including the introduction of Madripoor. I thought that was really cool, and I'm so excited for the potential that holds. And when the Wakandans first show up, when the Dora Milaje first show up, that was awesome. All of that is reminiscent of The Winter Soldier, which is one of my favorite MCU films, and so I think that is the strongest part of this series. I also really love the character arcs for Sam and Bucky. Bucky's story especially throughout the show was very moving. I really like that, and I think Sam's journey was also quite powerful. I loved Sam and Sarah's relationship and the commentary about race, society, and family through their financial hardship and their boat. And I thought everything with the boat was actually very well done. Everything with Baron Zemo was also great, and I'm so excited for his future in the MCU with the upcoming Thunderbolts team. Lastly, Isaiah Bradley's story was very moving and powerful and emotional, and the acting by Carl Lumbly was top notch. Very, very good stuff. But again, I'm just not sure how I feel about where they leave him / his story at the end of the series. I just don't feel like Sam's speech, although was very powerful, would hold any weight to convince anyone of anything, including Isaiah Bradley approving of that in a way, because I think that's what happens at the end. So I didn't really buy it, and I don't really know how I feel about that. But I mean, it was a nice sentiment. I'm excited for Patriot though, who was introduced in this show and is a member of the Young Avengers, and so very, very excited to see what path he's gonna take. Overall, I had a really good time with this show. It just wasn't as strong as the other shows for me. That's why it is at the bottom of the list, but is no way means that I didn't like it. Number 4 is WandaVision. What an experience WandaVision was. Wow. I don't think I'll ever forget the anticipation and excitement that I had waiting week to week for another episode. It was unreal, and it was so special sharing that excitement with everyone online. Like, WandaVision truly united everyone, and that is impressive. I was crazy hyped for the show when it got announced. That first concept art that they released was just so cool. I even watched episodes of the sitcoms that were being referenced in order to prepare for the next week's episode. It was a wild time. Speaking of the sitcom episodes, I loved all of the sitcom episodes. They were perfect, and I really loved the beginning part of the series, and especially the beginning half of the series. When Evan Peters showed up as Pietro, I completely lost my mind. I didn't think that the show could get any better. And then the Halloween episode aired, and that is one of my favorite episodes. So good, so good, because we get so much in that episode. And then the twins using their powers, that was so cool. And then came some disappointment. I'll admit, I was a little Mephisto crazy. Yes, I'll admit that. But I still contend that it wasn't completely the fans' fault for overhyping and over-theorizing, because I think the showrunners and director, they teased us pretty hard and intentionally so, which I'm not a fan of because I don't think there was a payoff. I'm okay with these types of teases and misdirects when there is a payoff. For example, when Paul Bettany said that there was a surprise cameo in the finale of an actor that he had never worked with, and then it turned out to be himself. I personally thought that was hilarious. I actually really love that because we got White Vision as a payoff from the comics, and that was very cool. But with Pietro just being a boner joke, that was not cool. I didn't like that, and there never really was a mystery to begin with, and so I don't understand why they left clues throughout the show that kind of led nowhere. And so for that, I'm disappointed that I was being queued up for something cool from the comics or inspired from the comics, which didn't really materialize. However, I do really love the journey that we take with Wanda, and I think all of that was done extremely well. I just wish the writers didn't pull these random stuff from the comics as teases when it was clear by the end that they didn't really care about doing anything with them. But again, I do not hate the show, far from it actually. The more time that passes and the more I heal, the more I actually like what we did get. Of course, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen acted the heck out of their roles and they killed it. Catherine Hahn was phenomenal as Agatha, and I really loved everything with Monica, Vision, and the twins. I also really love seeing Wanda become the Scarlet Witch. and I just can't wait to see her in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm really excited for the story to continue there. Number 3 is What If? I had such a great time with this show. Check out my full review of the series and a ranking of my favorite episodes by clicking here, where I go in detail about what I really enjoyed. So here I will say that the animation, the storylines, and the characters were all brilliantly depicted and were all very thrilling. This is the best use of the multiverse so far, and I'm so excited to see more of it if it's anything like this series. Seriously, if you are a fan of Marvel, especially the MCU, then you need to watch this show if you haven't yet. Especially with Multiverse of Madness coming up, What If is mandatory viewing, and it is worth your time. Alright, so now we have our final 2. And number 2 is Hawkeye. Who knew that a show about Hawkeye would be so good? Actually, I did, because this was one of my most anticipated shows when it was announced, because it was based so heavily on the Hawkeye comic by Matt Fraction and art by David Aja Omnibus. There are some really deep cuts from that comic that I enjoyed so much. Tracksuit Mafia were hilarious in this show, and I loved Clint and Kate's dynamic throughout. Haley Steinfeld truly was perfectly cast as Kate Bishop because she was excellent. Of course, Florence Pugh was a wonderful addition to the show. I mean, she is just so good. One of my favorite MCU characters for sure. And Echo was super cool. Really interested to see her in her own Disney Plus show. These connections to the greater MCU are a big reason why I love this show so much. It fits within the world of the MCU without feeling like an isolated adventure in ways that some of the other shows do. I can see this fitting in terms of its scope and scale within the MCU without sacrificing any of the cohesiveness. And so I really appreciate that. I could see it coexisting with everything else going on. I really don't have any complaints with the show at all. I know some people didn't like how Kingpin was treated and depicted, and yeah, that was jarring, but it is a Disney Plus show. And so this Kingpin is not exactly the same version as the Netflix show, and that's okay. I mean, I just was so happy that Vincent D'Onofrio returned, and we now also have Charlie Cox back as Matt Murdock, so I'm just so excited to see what's next. I think it's important to remember that it's not going to be the same as the Netflix show. It's going to be different, so we should be open-minded. But I trust Kevin Feige and I trust Marvel, so I think that they are going to do some really good stuff with this. It was genius to set this series during Christmas because it made the show feel very warm and cozy and was a great thing to look forward to every week. There were just such great payoffs. I loved the trick arrows. I love the trick arrows a lot, and I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. And that's a really crucial point. It was truly the perfect end to a year of such great Marvel content. I really enjoyed it. That means number 1 is Loki. Wow. My absolute favorite Disney Plus Marvel series. It was phenomenal. Hands down the best. The cast is so good in the series. Everyone is amazing to watch throughout. Never got bored throughout the series. Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are brilliant as Loki and Mobius, and their dynamic was so fun to watch. Tom Hiddleston especially gave an amazing performance. He really knows Loki inside and out, and I love the journey that we take with this Loki because it's new and different, and Tom Hiddleston really gets to play with the character in fascinating ways. And I actually really enjoyed all the time traveling that we did in the series. I know some people were disappointed that there wasn't more time traveling, but after WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I realized that these Marvel shows are explorations of character. Focus is the character and a specific journey that they go on. So I had adjusted expectations for this show. And I actually really liked the storyline, and I was quite invested in the mystery and all the timekeeper stuff in the TVA. I also ended up really liking Sylvie, Hunter B-15 Ravonna, and Miss Minutes, who was so creepy. I mean, wow. Tara Strong is a legend. I'm also really intrigued to see where Gugu Mbatha-Raw's Ravonna ends up next, because she is a contemporary and love interest to Kang. Speaking of Kang, I was so hyped when Jonathan Majors shows up as Kang in the finale. Like, talk about payoff. This was a series that had teases and Easter eggs and delivered on all of them. And I love it for that alone. I loved seeing all of the Loki variants, and I actually really like Loki and Sylvie's relationship because, of course, Loki would fall in love with a variant of himself. And I know some people don't like it, but I think the show makes it pretty clear that that variants aren't copies of each other. Like, they're different individuals. And so, like, we have like an alligator Loki. I mean, I think that the variants are different enough where it works for me. I don't think it's a problem. I also think Sylvie by the end became Enchantress rather than Lady Loki, which I actually really like because she fits that character really well. And it also means that there is an opportunity to see an actual Lady Loki show up in season 2, which would be super cool. So I'm very hyped for season 2. The show itself was also very well directed, and the soundtrack, the music is incredible. This is one of my favorite Marvel soundtracks ever. And Natalie Holt is now one of my favorite composers. She was brilliant. I can't praise this show enough. I love it. I really, really love it. It's my favorite. So yeah, that is my ranking of the Disney Plus Marvel shows that we got in order of my favorite. Let me know, what did you think of my list? What do you agree with and what do you disagree with? And what does your list look like? What are your favorite Marvel Disney Plus shows? Cannot wait to talk about them more with you. And I can't wait for all the new shows that we're gonna get this year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great time. I'm so excited for 2022 and all the Marvel content that we're gonna get. Make sure to stick around. There's gonna be lots more videos coming. In the meantime though, make sure you like this video and subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss any videos in 2022. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.